Hello, my fellow chatterers and book lovers, and anyone else who's popped in because you're curious about what this is or you've got a bit lost. Welcome everyone, I'm Chatty, this is my channel Chatty the Mad Chatter, and I'm going to be chatting away madly on this day, April the 2nd, about International Children's Book Day. Which was something I hadn't heard of until Julie from the channel Once Upon a Julie invited me to take part in announcing this day and doing something bookish about it. So before I get into that, I'm just going to do my little gimmick because it's one shot. The camera keeps rolling on this channel for this video. I have been doing some editing, but we're back to my one shots. So here we are, everyone. Cheers. Clink, 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 clink. No editing for this, which will be lovely. So, International Children's Book Day is something that is celebrated on April the 2nd because that is also the birthday of Hans Christian Andersen, who is one of the well-known fairy tale writers. So every year on International Children's Book Day, they invite a country to sponsor it. So 2025, it is the Netherlands. So we have the poet Rian Weiser and her poem The Language of Pictures. So that is the theme for this year. So within the poem The Language of Pictures, I have put a link into the description box so you can go and check out their website and you can find the poem and you can have a little look should you want to. I do enjoy a few lines of the poem. There's some lovely phrases. And the idea is that you can draw, what's it like to draw things that are said in the poem. Draw the pain of a push or the taste of the sea. I thought those were very lovely phrases. And then it ends with what has become the theme for this year, which is the words. Now, I wrote this down, but my pen was running out, so I'm just going to squint at it. The words belong to you, even though they came from me. So that is the theme. The words belong to you, even though they came from me, which is such a lovely sentiment that we have as readers. Although authors tell the story and are inspired, they spill out the words into our lives, whether that's through spoken word or whether we read it off the page or whether we hear someone read it to us. And then we get some ownership of this story. And it means different things to different people, which is one of the things that is so lovely about fairy tales. Most people know of fairy tales. I myself know a certain amount of different fairy tales, but I haven't really read the originals. So when Julie suggested that to celebrate this day, it might be nice if we looked at 4 different Hans Christian Andersen stories and spoke about them. I thought that would be a really fun thing to do because I haven't really read any directly from Hans Christian Andersen. Like I've read like picture book versions or like retold versions. So Julie from the channel Once Upon a Julie, which I will link in the description box, I suggest go and have a look at her channel. Go check her channel out. This channel is quite dedicated to more middle grade based things. She does have another channel called Travels with Books. I will link both of them for you. But she is going to be doing a video as well, which will be out at the same time as mine. And she will be focusing on 4 different stories. I also recommend go and look. I'll link it in my description box as well. But she's done a video about the importance of reading middle grade and why as an adult it's delightful to read middle grade, which is something that I really enjoyed. So I also recommend go and have a look at that one as well. So the 4 tales I have chosen are the Tinderbox, the Ugly Duckling, the Pen and the Inkstand, and the Wild Swans. So I'm going to talk through my thoughts on each of these. So I actually did some e-reading. I don't have an e-reader, so this was just all done off my phone, but I was able to access all of these stories from a website where it gives all of the chronological order of publication of all of the different stories of Hans Christian Andersen. So I had a look through a few and I chose these 4. There was some there are some very different ones on there. So if you're interested in this sort of thing, I'll link this website as well, so you can go and have a look for yourselves. But I don't actually think I have read, or if I do, I've lost any memory of it, read the original versions by Hans Christian Andersen. So the Ugly Duckling I'm very familiar with. That is a story that I really enjoy. I really love the moral of it. I love the themes that are explored in it. But funnily enough, from reading it, I hadn't realised there were certain things that I know of retellings and not from the actual story, which I found quite interesting. The Tinderbox I remember as a child really enjoying, but I read it as an adult and I have some different feelings. And the Wild Swans, it's what's the word? There's something that stirs a recognition. Something about it stirs some sort of recognition in my memory, but I don't know if I ever have read it before or if it's just of a similar kind of fairy tale kind of formula that makes it seem familiar. And The Pen and the Inkstand I'd never read. So I will start off with the Tinderbox. So the Tinderbox was one of the first published stories, and it was published in 1835. So the Tinderbox tells a tale of a soldier. He's a poor soldier, he's down on his luck, he's walking and he passes a witch. And she says, "Can you go into this oak tree and retrieve a tinderbox for me?" And then she goes on to explain that within it there are 3 different rooms. In the first room it's full of copper coins, and there is a dog guarding the copper coins. And the largeness of the dog goes up with the largeness of the wealth. And I did really enjoy the repetition of 3. I always enjoy that in fairy tales. I think it's such a fun thing, that things just keep getting bigger. There's something like familiar as well about that repetition. And I did enjoy the description of the dogs, about how big their eyes were, and that's something I definitely remember from, I can't remember if I was a child or a teenager or whenever it was I read it, but I do remember like this reference to the dog's eyes. So it's like the dog's eyes were as large as dinner plates, or they were as large as mill wheels. So I do remember all of that. And the soldier goes through each of the rooms, he fills up his pockets with copper coins, but then goes to the next, empties all his pockets and fills them up with silver. You would think that, you know, he'd just go, well, let's just keep going till I get to the gold one. But no. Anyway, he gets back, he's full of gold coins, and he goes to give the witch the tinderbox, but then asks her why does she want it. And she says, "It doesn't matter why I want it. Please may I have well, I don't know if she says please may I have, she just says give me the tinderbox." And he decides not to, even though she was the one that told him, "Look, you can go and make your fortune. You can go in the tree, make your fortune, just give me the tinderbox." He said he was going to do it, and then he just decided not to. So I don't like this from the soldier. I highly disapprove. I think it's a bit shoddy behaviour when she's kept her end of the bargain. She said, "Look, there's coins, you can help yourself to coins." There was coins, he helped himself to coins, but didn't give her the tinderbox. And he wouldn't have known about it if she hadn't said, "Can you go and get the tinderbox?" It's quite harsh. So what does he do? He cuts her head off. Excellent. That's what hero. Let's just execute someone because they won't tell you why they want the thing they asked you to go and find. That sounds sensible. So the part of the story I didn't enjoy was the privilege of this soldier, and just, yeah, he's quite infuriating. I would love a inspiration retelling of the story that has the main character of the witch, and maybe she comes back and deals with this. I'd love a revenge story from the witch, because yeah, soldier's an idiot. We then go on to hear more about the soldier, and it kind of goes on to, first of all, we've got a very kind of like similar, like the like the prodigal son. He goes, spends all his money, and then he's poor again, and then wonders what to do to get rich. It doesn't actually go home and say sorry, but it's just like, oh, I'm poor now. And decides to compete for the hand of this beautiful maiden, the daughter of the king and queen. And I can't remember what it is. There's some sort of trial, and he'd forgotten about the tinderbox, but then he lights a match, and then the dog appears. So every time he lights it, so he lights it once, and the first dog appears twice. 2 strikes and the second dog, 3 strikes and the third dog. So again, you get this repetition of 3s. Anyway, he manages to complete the task, win the princess, but the king and queen aren't impressed that he's a poor soldier and say, no, you can't do it. He gets angry and kills them and then marries the princess. Yay! Life problems can all be solved with a sword. And she's fine because she was tired of being stuck in a tower, so she was quite happy to be married to a murderer. Lovely. Isn't that just great? So yeah, I love the plot device of the Tinderbox. Not so big a fan of our protagonist. Serious issues there, namingly murdering tendencies. Not so fun. But would love to read some retellings of that one. That would be quite entertaining. Moving on to the Ugly Duckling, which I think is the one out of these that people know the most. I also very familiar, grew up with, I don't know if anyone of my age, I was born in the mid-80s. I am approaching 40. If you grew up with the cassette tape, that's how old we're going, a handful of songs. There was one, there once was an ugly duckling with feathers all stubby and brown, and something or the birds will quack, get out of town, quack, get out, quack, quack, get out of town. It was quite entertaining. They also did another Hans Christian Andersen story, The Emperor's New Clothes, as well. I won't sing that one as well. But I think that is one of my key memories of the Ugly Duckling story, that song. But I really enjoy the themes of this story, as I've already said. And for me, it feels very much about like hope going through persecution, not focusing on appearances, and just the kind of it can sometimes take you a while to find your tribe. Like if you are rejected by a lot of people in society, there are people out there for you that you will find your tribe with, and the you inside of you is very beautiful, and there will always be someone there to appreciate that. So I really love the theme of the story. That's what I take from it. That is my interpretation of, sorry, it's going to link back to the theme here, which I can't read. Okay, that's my interpretation of the words that belong to me, even though they came from Hans Christian Andersen. There we go, linking. So I hadn't read the Hans Christian Andersen version, so I really enjoyed how much he's very much of a scene setter. You get this really like lovely description of the pond and the farm where the eggs are hatched and the mother duck. And I didn't realise there was a little bit of foreshadowing, because another dog pops over and says, oh, maybe it's taking so long to hatch because it's a turkey egg. I did that once and they just wouldn't swim. Then I realised my mistake. So there's a little bit of a foreshadowing there, but obviously cygnets swim. Hashtag spoilers, sorry if you weren't aware of the story of Ugly Duckling. It's actually a cygnet. So yeah, so it cygnet swims with the duckling, so it's like, oh, can't be a turkey, it's all fine. And the mother actually starts off by defending the duckling. I was like, he's like, you know, he's still like very graceful on the water. Maybe it's because he's a boy, he'll grow up big and strong, he'll be fine, but he's absolutely terrorized by everyone and everything for being ugly, which is horrific, quite frankly. All these people in the farmyard just terrorize him. And then he does actually meet some other people. Like there's some wild ducks who are like, well, that's fine, you can hang with us, but don't marry into our family. So, you know, slight improvement, but not great. But then there's some wild geese that kind of come along, and it's like, oh, don't worry about it. Like, come and hang with us. We're more than happy to welcome you along. But then there's a massive shootout because the farmers and hunters are all shooting geese, and these poor geese are shot at, and the duckling basically spends a load of time like just hiding from gunshots and hunting dogs. And I had no idea that this was in the Ugly Duckling. Absolutely was not aware of this. I always know that the originals have always got a much darker edge to them, but yeah, I hadn't realised that. So this poor duckling, and then there's other instances where the duckling kind of like tries to find other places to stay and tries to find other things, and eventually is so depressed and so tired and has had such a hard winter that when he sees these wonderful creatures, the swans, which he previously saw and thought were amazing, he's like, I'm going to die. Like that. This is how low he's got. The poor duck has depression to the lowest point by this point. Not that you can blame him from the amount of persecution he has had. Not that you blame anyone for being depressed. but completely understandable considering how much persecution he's faced. And there's no one there backing up his self-worth whatsoever. So he goes up to this one and says, please kill me. Like, it'd be an honor. If I'm going to die, I'd be honored to be killed by you. And as he bends his head down, he sees in the reflection of the water that he is actually a swan. And then it's all hunky-dory. So the ending was a little bit rushed. Like, there wasn't a huge amount of resolution. Like, I felt we needed some therapy, quite frankly. Probably wasn't big in the 1830s, but I felt like I needed a little bit more time with this story to just let it settle. And also it didn't have like one of my favorite parts, which is where like the swans originally are just like, oh, come and be with us, you're amazing. It's like, why would you want to be near me? I'm so ugly. And they're like, but you're beautiful. And he's like, what? You're the best swan I've ever seen. It's like, I'm not a swan, have a look. Oh, I am a swan. So that actually didn't happen. That's all from retellings and from this handful of songs song that I remember. What a swan, me, go on. I really am a swan. That was the song. There you go. You're welcome. So yeah, so different things that I can remember. But I did overall enjoy that story, despite its darkness and tragedy. We got there in the end. It just took a while. Poor Signet. So the pen and the inkstand is a very different type of tale. This feels slightly more almost on the lines of more like Aesop's Fable kind of vibe. So you have two inanimate objects. You have a pen and you have an inkstand. This I found really, really charming. This is one of the shorter tales that I'd read. But there was just something quite lovely about it. It's almost like it's an ode to the joy of art. So you hear about Hans Christian Andersen's love for poetry and writing, and also his love for music, and how these gifts are wonderful. And there is also a possible dig at some people who are maybe a little bit conceited about their skills and talents. And I presume that I'm presuming because of the time and because of the tone of this moral, Hans Christian Andersen is a practicing Christian from that time, and all gifts come from God. So you've been blessed with a gift and you share it, but it is only made possible by God, so you can't be too conceited about it. And he kind of uses that tale to put the pen and the inkstand. Well, he doesn't put the pen and the inkstand in their place because he probably doesn't know that they're animated. But he kind of shows this through a pen and an inkstand, and the inkstand saying, isn't it amazing how I just have all these wonderful words inside me? Aren't I amazing? And the pen's like, hold on a minute, I don't think that comes from you. I write with your ink, I have all the wonderful words. So they both kind of snipe at each other, and then the poet comes and writes this wonderful story that about this musician and the bow and the violin, and how that it can't come from the bow and everything comes from God. So the pen and the inkstand are like, see, that was aimed at you, you conceited little pen, you conceited inkstand. And so they both like snipe at each other, and then there we go, that's the story. It just seemed quite charming. It was just quite a lovely story about the love of art, and I did find them slightly amusing. Just the concept of where the stories come from and things like that. So that was nice. And I realised I started off by telling you when they were published, and then I stopped. So if you're interested, The Ugly Duckling was published in 1844. The Pen and the Inkstand is one of the later ones that was published in 1860. So probably by that time, Hans Christian Andersen had very much got into his writing vibe. And then we go back, 1838 is when the Wild Swans were published. So one of the earlier ones. So the Wild Swans is quite a long tale, and this is very much of the fairy tale variety. It includes a task, a quest, enchantments, wicked stepmothers, abandoned children, princesses and princes in disguise, marriage. Like there's a lot of things in here. So this story, I wonder if there is a similar. So I haven't read Six Crimson Cranes. and I can't remember if that is based on a Chinese fable or Chinese mythology, but I'd be very curious to kind of know which sort of like the timings of those as well, and like if there's some kind of like innate thing where there's this concept of like hidden people, hidden brothers being birds, and or if they kind of took if the Wild Swans was inspired by Six Crimson Cranes fable. Anyway, I don't know. That's something for me to look up. But this is the story of 11 princes and 1 princess. And we have the normal story. The king remarries and the stepmother doesn't like her stepchildren, turns all the boys into swans, lies about all of the children, and gets the king to forget about them, which is always terrible parenting, obviously. Anyway, the girl eventually is reunited with her brothers and has found that they've turned into swans and wants to kind of go with them and wants to try and help them. And she they carry her in this net together, and there's a lovely kind of like sibling relationship and kind of care for each other within that. And then she tries to undo the enchantment by like seeking guidance. Like she prays and asks like how can she undo this enchantment, and she is given this dream where she has to use nettles and weave them into coats and then put the coats on the swans. But until she's done this task, she's not allowed to talk. So she's getting stinging fingers, she's working away, weaving, trying to help her brothers. At one point she's intercepted by obviously another noble who decides that he's going to rescue her, because why bother finding out if she's fine by herself, and takes her away, and she continuously sobs until she's given the equipment from her cave, which is so she can continue her task of making her brother's coats. Again, I enjoyed the way the story is told. I enjoyed the bravery of her character is fantastic, and but again there is a lot of... So within the story, she is accused of being a witch, and once again we have some persecution because she's not going to defend herself, and she continues trying to finish making these coats to break the enchantment for her brothers up until the last moment. And when all of that comes out, I don't think there's enough grovelling. I don't think there's enough grovelling done. Quite frankly, that it's not really addressed. It's just like, and now it's all fine, yay! So love the brother-sister relationship, love the bravery of our protagonist Eliza. Fantastic, enjoyed the kind of the plot and the enchantment. Again, struggling with the male privilege here, that you can just grab a woman off shower with witches and think it's all going to be fine. Not always a happy ever after, just in my opinion. So there we go. I had a lot of fun reading and finding out more about the Hans Christian Andersen stories. Let me know if you have any favourites, if you have any opinions on these, and if you have any retellings and reimaginings that you'd like to recommend me. And don't forget to go and check out Julie's video as well on her channel Once Upon a Julie to find out more Hans Christian Andersen stories and what she thought of them. Happy reading, everyone, and happy International Children's Book Day.